I be honest with you? I think about 80% of the reason that I'm still making YouTube videos 7 years into this is because I'm obsessed with new romance releases, which is part of the reason that I feel like Goodreads news and interviews writers cater specifically to me when they are writing their articles. 99 new romance and romantasy books to heat up summer. Say less, I am so there, in fact, that I am reading all 99 of these books, guided by release date and making 4 videos on all of them. And this is the first of them. I've read 30 books to tell you about them and who I think should pick them up. But before we get into it, we have to talk about something that I do not like picking up, and that would be calls from spam callers. Thankfully though, I don't do much of that these days, thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Aura. In my 30 years of living, I've had a lot of experiences, some good, some bad, but having my personal information sold to data brokers after my information gets leaked, I would say is decidedly one of the bad ones. I've had people try to open up cell phone plans in my name. I have had scammers text me about unpaid tolls that don't actually exist, and I have gotten relentless spam calls. Gotten especially annoying because they tend to use the area code of my own phone number when they're calling, so I never know if the person who's on the other end of this call is trying to reach me about my car's extended warranty, or if it is a doctor trying to get to me with some really important test results. It's because our personal information is floating around online. Companies called data brokers sell our data without our consent, making billions selling it to marketers, scammers, and anyone who wants it basically. They're legally required to remove it if you ask, but they make it really, really hard for you to do so on your own, which is why I recommend Aura. They take care of the hard part, the automatic removal of that information from websites, and they help to keep it off as well. And what sets Aura apart from other digital security tools, and what I really love, is that it is all in one. You can get alerts if your personal information is found on the dark web, real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, 24/7 monitoring to keep your identity secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and more, and US-based support available around the clock if anything goes wrong. If anything ever does go wrong, Aura includes $5 million in identity theft insurance protection. I love knowing that Aura has my back online. Try Aura for free for 14 days at aura.com/chandler.ainsley. In those 2 weeks, you'll be able to discover where your data is exposed and sold. Thanks again to Aura for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Now let's get chatting about those 30 romances, shall we? Those 30 May new releases. I'll let you know which ones I think are worth your time. Feel free to skip around in the timestamps down below. I'm going to group them into little sections, and I'm going to film in various different places around my house to keep things interesting. Let's go, girls. First category that I have come up with is almost good, but not quite. These are books that I did not hate, but didn't totally work for me for whatever reason, and I'm going to tell you about those 3 books real quick as I do my makeup, because I've got a zit the size of Jupiter on my face, and I need to remedy that. First up, Friends with Benefits. Adult romance debut for this author that I have never heard of. Now, here's the struggle, my friends. This was everything on paper that I like. Marriage of convenience, childhood friends to lovers, flashback scenes. The execution was just so not it for me. I felt absolutely no chemistry between hero and heroine. So our main character, Evie, I want to say her name is, she is really wanting to become a Foley artist. Can't remember what her current position is, but she really, really wants to become a Foley artist. If you don't know what that is, it's basically making sound effects for movies. So if someone is like walking in high heels, she does that noise and then they put that on the movie in post. She's trying to break into this industry. She ends up getting fucked over by this guy that she works with and not being given credit for a position. So she can't get basically her SAG card, which would get her insurance. To have insurance because she's chronically ill, she has Crohn's, which was a diagnosis she found out about when she was younger, when her and her friend Theo were younger and were dancing together. So Theo is her childhood best friend. They are still in contact. They text all the time, best friends. He knows everything that's going on in our girl's life for the most part. Decides that he is going to get married, I suppose, to Evie, or maybe he like lies to a coworker about being married, and so they get married. She gets insurance. She gets to take this like Foley internship that she's always wanted, and we get flashbacks to their past, and we get to see them fall in love both in the past and in the present. Here's my problem with it. I didn't feel the chemistry. I love that there was chronic illness representation. I love a good flashback scene, but I was bored. And frankly, telling you about this, me knowing all of the details, I had to really sit and think about it for a second, because if you said, hey, do you remember that book, Friends with Benefits? I couldn't tell you a fucking thing. That is not a problem that I've had with any of the other books on this list. If you were looking for a marriage of convenience novel and you want that Crohn's rep, maybe pick this one up, but I just don't think that this was like really fun or really sexy. 3-star material, kind of eh. Moving on to Courtroom courtroom drama. This was not boring. This book was the opposite of boring. This book is about our main character, Sydney. She is, I'm gonna say, a mediator or something like that. Her position doesn't really matter because we don't really learn much about her job throughout the course of the story. She is going to be on the jury for one of the Real Housewives, or Real Moms of Malibu, whatever the fuck the generic book version of that show is. She's accused of murdering her husband. Our heroine is convinced that she did not do it, and she's really excited to be on this jury and not necessarily convince the jury that Margot, the murderess, didn't do it. You know, she definitely is going to listen to all the facts and is going to, you know, do what she can, do her part. It's kind of hard though because her childhood best friend, Damon, also on the jury, and he kind of left her unceremoniously when they were teens. They had like kind of already professed their love for each other, were super into each other, and then he basically left and ghosted her. Anyway, these two rekindle their high school love for each other in a kind of courtroom setting, right? Like they're all, I don't know what the word is, sequestered for the length of this trial, and they like pass notes back and forth to each other like children. They're explicitly told by the judge of this case to not fuck each other. They do it anyway. Not only was there too much fucking going on in this book, like, okay, theoretically love it. We've got a Legally Blonde kind of situation going on with the courtroom. We've got Real Housewives. We've got second chance romance. While all of that's nice and good, kind of too much going on for it to be convincing in any one arena. Like, I was kind of invested in the trial until I realized it wasn't really going anywhere and we weren't really going to get any fun answers. And then same with the romance. I was like, okay, like maybe this is more romance, but it wasn't really either. Sure, you liked each other when you were kids. That's great. Present though, what are you doing to show me that you two are compatible in the long term? Y'all are just kind of like fucking in house almost, like having fun canoodling when it's forbidden. But how the fuck is this gonna work in the long term? Your compatibility, I barely understand what this man does for a living. You, as the heroine, are saying that this is the man you want to live with forever? No, I just feel like the declarations of like love and intent to stay together forever were a bit much, a bit too soon. This was okay. I gave it 3 stars. At least it was semi-entertaining, but if you're looking for a satisfying conclusion, you're not gonna find it here. If you are looking for a sapphic romance and you don't get easily pissed off by books, maybe Dream On Ramona Riley will be the one for you. What I'm discovering is that I just don't fuck with Ashley Herring Blake's writing. I looked at my ratings of her books. Apparently I used to really like her YA stuff. I have not really liked any of her adult romances, which really sucks. I feel like she has, I want to say promise, right? She is an author who's been writing for a really long time. I'm not telling her how to write her stories, but she just somehow always manages to give her characters traits that irritate the fuck out of me. And I understand trying to make your character realistic and they should have flaws. All for it, make your characters mildly irritating. But somehow every character that Ashley Herring Blake writes pisses me off, okay? So this book's about Ramona and Dylan. Dylan is an actress coming to this small town to pretend to be a small town waitress in a movie. Ramona has been living in the small town her whole life because her mom left when she was younger and left behind Ramona's little sister, who is quite a few years younger than her. And instead of going off to college, Ramona has stayed in town and helped raise her sister. Now her sister is 18 and about to go to college herself. Ramona is struggling with identity, struggling with what she wants to do now that her sister is leaving the house. Is she going to go to school? She really wants to be a costume designer. What is with all these cool jobs and books? I don't know, but I'm here for it. And this is kind of a great time to maybe potentially get an internship because there is going to be a costume designer in town, of course, for this movie that is taking place. Basically everybody, it seems, in this town is queer, and I love that. Ramona's best friend is queer. Dylan's queer. I think the actress in the movie who is starring opposite Dylan, also queer. That's about where my love or enjoyment for this book kind of ends. These two are so fucking stubborn, okay? Wait, actually that's not true. The sex scenes in this book are incredibly hot. The sex scenes are incredibly hot, and that is one thing that I really keep coming back to with Ashley Herring Blake's writing. Not so much loving conflicts that she gets her characters into. She like has characters withhold information from each other that is completely unnecessary to be withheld. Manufacture conflict that will just bring two people apart, and it feels cruel and like not fun. And I'm all for a third act breakup, right? I'm all for conflict in books, but hers just always feel mean. I don't know how else to say it. Like they just don't feel like they always fit the characters, and also they do fit the characters. The person who's wronged always overreact, make for a pleasing reading experience. I think that if you like this author, I think you might enjoy this book. From what I have read of the Goodreads reviews though, most people find the conflict of this book and the characters irritating as well, so I know I'm not alone. Not saying don't pick it up, I am saying I think there are better female-female romances out there. For when you want to feel something, I feel is a pretty self-explanatory category. These are the books that you should pick up when you are looking for an emotional read this summer. I've got 4 books in this category, 3 of which I have physical copies of. Actually, I think I own the 4th, but I just simply can't find my copy. And I feel like that kind of tells you all you need to know, which is that I do enjoy these books. Typically, I am someone who likes books that kind kind of pull on the heartstrings. I don't want things that are like artificially sad and sappy, but these books really deliver in terms of going a little bit farther with the emotions than maybe some of these other like rom-coms on this list. So first up, we have Can't Get Enough by Miss Kennedy Ryan. I wish that this book was a better fit for me, but I can still wholeheartedly recommend this to so many different people. This book is about Hendrix and Maverick. Hendrix is going through a little bit of a transition in her life. Her mom is now needing a caretaker because she is in the beginning stages of dementia/Alzheimer's. She is also trying to grow her business, so she is being pulled in multiple different directions at the moment because she wants her business to succeed. She knows her mom wants that for her. She knows her aunt, who is caretaking for her mom, also wants that for her, but she is trying to figure out the best way to move forward in the various aspects of her life. And she's not necessarily looking for love, but it does come a knocking whenever she meets Maverick in sort of a professional setting, if you will. Now, Maverick is a guy who is trying to also navigate a new stage of life. His daughter is, I believe, graduating. He is co-parenting with the woman that he had this child with. He is, at the beginning of the book, though, with a different woman who he has recently broken up with, and that person specifically wanted children. He does not want any more children, so it was an amicable separation, but the woman that he broke up with, like, kind of still misses him and is kind of a part of this book. Anyway, Hendrix and Maverick are very well suited for each other. He definitely provides the emotional support she needs as she is going through a hard time, and she is just really compatible with him because she is not only sexy and confident, but she shares some of his business interests and also does not want children. So this book I enjoyed because of the compatibility of the two characters. I feel like they had a lot of physical chemistry, but the emotional intimacy that I was craving from this book I don't feel like went far enough. I also felt like the caretaking aspect wasn't quite as robust as I would have liked to see. I understand that Hendrix couldn't physically be there for her mother for a lot of this book, and I did think that was an interesting aspect considering most of the time when we see caretaking in books, it is that person physically caretaking for their parent or whoever they are looking after. And in this book, it was more like she was delegating that task to someone else. I don't want to critique the book for that reason, but it felt like it was an additional aspect to this book that I don't think was explored as much as I would have liked it to be. Kennedy Ryan, she's an amazing author. Even though this was not my favorite book in the series, I do still think it is worthwhile, and it does still pack an emotional punch. So 3 stars for me, but definitely a book that I recommend. The book that I, for some reason, can't find my physical copy of is Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. This was one of my favorite books that I read last year. I was lucky enough to receive an advanced copy because I was one of the sensitivity readers for this book, so I really liked this one. This book is about Ren and Ellis. They are a previously married and divorced for quite a few years now couple. They are dropping their adult son off at university. He has just recently turned 18. He's going to school, and on their way back from dropping their son off at college, they decide that they're going to take a sort of road trip to almost like reflect on raising this child together, even though they're like no longer together romantically. But of course, old feelings kind of come up and they work through some of the reasons that they got divorced in the first place. Now, I do want to say there is a very big trigger warning here for loss of a pregnancy and fertility issues. That is one of the reasons that these characters couldn't make it work in the long term. Getting to see these two come together and address their traumas, get to actually communicate, having some separation from the situation and having grown a lot separately was really sweet to see. I think it's really challenging to pull off second chance romance. I think often authors don't know how to show growth with their characters, or they don't allow the characters to spend enough time apart. I think this book was perfect because they spent enough time apart. We could see that they actually grew. We could see that they could come back together and resolve their conflict, and they were compatible at a base level, and we got to see how they were compatible in the present day as well. It was beautiful. It was actually very sexy. It is one of the best like emotional romances that I've read in quite a while. I'll be thinking about this book for quite a while, and I think that you should definitely pick it up. I think the setting itself is very summery, even if the actual content of the book is a little meatier than maybe, again, some of the other rom-coms on this list. Next book is Rewind It Back by Liz Tomford. This is another second chance romance about Rio and Hallie. Rio and Hallie were childhood best friends who grew to be lovers. They were with each other up until the age of 21. So from ages 12 to 21, they were in each other's lives. They saw each other every day. Best friends first, but definitely lovers as well, until something happens to separate these two, and they separate for 6 years until they are placed back in each other's lives when Hallie returns to Chicago, which is where our hero is playing hockey as a professional hockey player. She is in town because she is like settling here in the long term. She wanted to live in a big city after graduating. She's working as an intern at an interior design firm, and she just so happens to move in to the house next door to Rio, living with a woman's house she recently renovated. This woman is like the same age as her, needed the house renovated because her older brother is going to sell the house and she graduates, and anyway, it's a whole thing. Rio wants someone to renovate his house that he's thinking of selling because he's thinking about potentially moving back home to be closer to his mother, and he needs someone to renovate it, and he doesn't know who renovated his neighbor's house, but he thinks she did a great job, and so he hires Hallie, and they're like, oh shit, didn't know it was you, and they get back in contact with each other and have to kind of work through the challenges that kind of broke them up in the first place. It is a romance that has flashbacks. It's a romance that has a lot of heated sexual moments in the present day. This is a book that I think would have had a greater impact on me had we seen a little bit more relationship development in the present day. However, I still found this incredibly romantic. I found the sex scenes very hot and steamy. I actually just read a comment from one of you when I talked about this book in a video where you were saying you found one of the sex scenes cringe. Couldn't disagree more. I think this book was really hot. Obviously, your mileage is going to vary. I think sex scenes are a deeply personal thing, but I loved the connection between these two. As someone who has a partner that I've been with for 15 years, getting to see these two come back together, there were a lot of like familiar feelings there for me personally. And overall, I just think Liz Tomford does a really good job with writing stories that are emotional without being overwrought and deep without being too melodramatic. This was not my favorite book in the series. I gave this book 4 stars, but I still really enjoyed it and I still would really recommend it. And last, but certainly not least, is Along Came Amor by Alexis Daria. This book, I honestly thought I had read whenever I saw the cover of it because it looks just like the first book in the series, but this is actually the last book in the Primas of Power series by this author, and I have to say it was fun revisiting this world because if there's one thing Alexis Daria does very well, it is writing character relationships, especially non-romantic relationships. This heroine, Ava, she has a really big extended family who is very meddlesome in her life, and that is one of the main conflicts, I guess you could say, of the story. Ava is a teacher who is recently divorced. She had been with the same man for, I want to say, about 10 years, and he kind of unceremoniously one day is like, hey, I'm not into you anymore, bye. This is obviously devastating to Ava. She knew their relationship wasn't perfect, but she didn't expect to be dumped kind of out of the blue, and now she is trying to figure out what she wants out of her life because she is kind of sick of all the people-pleasing that she does. Her other cousins seem to be really good at asserting their needs and finding partners. They have found, you know, romantic love that is lasting, and Ava's just like, you know what, maybe it's time for me to do something different because the way I'm doing things right now is just not working for me and I'm not getting my needs met. I don't like my job. I have recently gotten rid of that romantic partner. I am trying to stand up for myself in my personal life. I'm gonna do something different, and on the day that her divorce is finalized, she ends up hooking up with the owner of a hotel that she is staying at for a work conference and having a steamy night of passion. Of course, that steamy night of passion turns into so much more as Ava gets to explore this connection with this guy named Roman. Roman, for his part, is definitely a flawed individual, but he is really, really sweet and really cares about taking care of Ava. He sees that she is someone who has a hard time speaking her mind. She definitely has opinions, but she feels like she can't voice those opinions. She feels like she's not always listened to, and while this is something that doesn't come naturally to him, he's definitely a domineering type, really wants to help Ava, and he really wants to provide what she needs, which is, again, to be listened to and be supported. I really enjoyed idea behind this romance. I think the execution was a little lacking for me, mostly because this is a 500-page plus romance. I feel like too much of that page length was devoted to the heroine dynamic with her family. Don't get me wrong, I love getting to see close-knit families in other cultures of a very small nuclear family, and so I don't get to have relationship dynamics like this, and I love seeing it on page. Like, I think that that is a very important part of this heroine, her life, her culture, etc. But when it is a romance that I'm reading, I want to see more on-page character development and interaction between the two. They fucked a lot. They hook up very often in this book. Not until the 50% mark that these two have a conversation really beyond just, oh, I'm a recent divorcee and we're having crazy good sex. I needed more page length, I think, of them really getting to know each other, because we go from fucking having a couple conversations to saying I love you, and it felt weird pacing-wise. I do think it's a worthy entry in the series. It just wasn't perfect for me. Now, what is Hard Romantasy, you might be asking yourself, and I think if you read in this genre even a little bit, you might know what I'm talking about. Regular degular, we've got the Sarah J. Maas Pretenders, we've got Fae fantasy, we've got enemies to lovers where they fuck in the first 50%, baby dragons are afoot, This is not that. This is the purple prosy, I'm trying to be different, I'm not like other romantasy authors' books, and I'm not saying that in a bitchy way, I'm just saying it in a differential sort of way. That's kind of the whole point of these categories, to kind of define these books in a way, lump them together, and have more fun ways of talking about them. So this category, first up we got The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I mean, this just screams not like other girls romantasy. It's a little try hard, and that's okay. That's okay. She does a good job at it. I tip my hat, my fedora to her, because she really did that. So this book's about Sybil and Roderick. Sybil is a diviner. She's one of 6 orphans, aka a foundlings, and they are now representative of the omens, which are the gods of this world. The gods are part of this religion, and as a part of them living at this like kind of convent-y space with the abbess, they are going to divine / tell the future for people for a period of 10 years. They're going to give up their identities basically and just become representatives of the omens. And one day, a knight and a king and other knights walk into this place, and the king is specifically asking his future to be told. It is told, and let's just say things aren't looking so hot. That's just part of the story though, because a few days later, a few weeks later, honestly, what is time? We have all of these girls going missing, except Sybil, who is the sixth omen. She's like, where are my bitches at? I like these girls, and I'm really sad that they're gone. And so she enlists the help of Roderick, who is kind of a skeptic of her religion and of this process of divining the future, but she has to enlist his help because she has no one else to turn to, and she and this like magical gargoyle-y guy and Roderick go on this adventure, maybe kind of a nice way to put it, to find these girls and find out what happened to them. Along the way, Sybil discovers more about her world and more about this religion and the magic around her. Did I enjoy this book? Yes. If you are someone who is a very vibes-based reader, you like Rachel Gillig's other book, One Dark Window, I think you will enjoy this. I'm saying it out loud. I'm pretty sure One Dark Window is like the first in duology or something like that. This has very similar vibes. I did like this one a little bit more. I kind of appreciated the romantic relationship more in this one. I don't love the way that this book ended though, admittedly. Proceed with caution. If this is the kind of shit you like, if you are sick of romantasy books that feel all samey, I think you would enjoy this one. If you are someone who is just looking for a fae book where they fuck, more power to you. This isn't that. So I think you kind of know what you're getting yourself into when you're picking up this book. It's pretty. The pretty vibes are definitely within the book as well in the prose. So hats off to Rachel Gillig. I gave this book 3 stars, but I would in fact recommend it. A book that I didn't in fact read is A Curse Carved in Bone by Danielle L. Jensen. Now, I did read the first book in the series, and I felt that was enough. Freya, she's a shield maiden. She is married to a fishmonger who kind of fucking sucks, and he does not want to be married to her, and she does not want to be married to him. But her identity as a shield maiden is eventually revealed when this Jarl and his son come to town, and so they kind of conveniently get rid of her husband, and he's like, hey, good riddance, hate that bitch. And she is married to this guy who is trying to take over and become powerful. He's like, hey, I can use your shield maiden powers. Get married to me. Has no choice but to get married to this guy. Unfortunately, she really likes his son, right? So she's in a situation in which she's not supposed to fuck this guy, but she really wants to. She's like, I'm your stepmommy, but like, I want to bang it out with you. His name is Bjorn, and I feel like this was a missed opportunity to name the Jarl Bjorn and then have the son be baby Bjorn. But that aside, I didn't enjoy the first book in this series. I felt like the romance was really front and center for this romantasy book. It was so uninspired, frankly. The whole forbidden aspect really was not there for me. I did not feel like the fantasy really came into this book in a way that I found very exciting. If you like the sort of like Norse mythology, Viking type shit, I think you might enjoy this book, but I just don't tend to connect with this author's writing, so I think mileage is definitely going to vary. I think between these two books, they're not really similar necessarily, but definitely have similar, I would say, prose in a sense. I would definitely recommend The Night and the Moth over this series, but hey, I think if you've read that first book and you really fucked with it, we give A Curse Carved in Bone a chance. This section I'm calling Your Honor, I Object, because these books are objectionable to me in a multitude of ways. I've got 3 books to tell you about, 2 of which I have not read, 1 of which I have. First up, we have A Garden Wedding. This book I actually checked out from my library, but when I was going to add it to my currently reading on Goodreads, I noticed that in multiple of the reviews, people are talking about how this is a Christian romance, how this deals heavily with stories of the Bible. Now, I can neither confirm nor deny that. There were some reviews of this book that didn't mention the Bible at all. I personally am just not in the market for a Christian romance, so this didn't really appeal to me, and I didn't pick it up. I wouldn't say this is like objectionable in the sense that no one should pick it up. I don't feel that way about any of the books that I'm talking about today. It just was not something that I was personally into, so if you're looking for a Christian romance, maybe give this one a go. Second book I didn't read is Rebel in the Deep. I believe this one is by Katie Robert, and it is the 3rd book in a romantasy series, and there you go, 3rd book, romantasy series. I have not had good luck with this author in the past. From all accounts, this is a pretty good series, so if you like this author and you like romantasy, maybe give this one a go. I don't think this is, from what I can tell, quite as smutty as some of her novellas. I think it really leans more into the romantasy side of things, so maybe this could be for you. It just wasn't something that I was willing to commit to. I didn't want to have to read 3 books for this video. And then lastly is a book that I did read, The Lady's Road Guide to Utter Ruin. This is the 2nd book in a historical romance series, and typically when you think historical romance series, you think Bridgerton, you think each couple is getting their own book. That's not really the case for this series, and I didn't know that picking this book up, and I was really fucking confused because our heroine is talking about this guy that she has a crush on and like has been dealing with for a while. I guess he used to live in a prison colony abroad, and now he is back, and she's trying trying to help him assimilate into society, and I was like, am I missing something? And then that's when I realized this book is the second in a series, and the first book is also kind of about the same couple. The series in general, from what I can tell, is about two twins. They're 40-year-old women, but we're kind of mostly following one of the twins, again, as she is trying to like, this guy re-enter society, this guy she has a crush on. She is getting herself caught up in a bunch of different dealings in society, and because she's an unmarried woman who is of privilege, she is able to kind of like navigate in society in a way that other people aren't. She goes undercover, she pretends to be a man, she is trying to figure out why some women are going missing. There is just so much going on in this book, and I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I am, however, saying probably would have benefited from reading that first book, and I also just don't really know who I would recommend this book or the series to. I think if you are a die-hard historical romance fan, perhaps this would be something that's super interesting to you, that the historical accuracy is probably mostly there, even though, again, like, our heroine is doing some stuff that like maybe is out of character for a lady of the ton. I do think that this definitely focuses a lot on some of the like societal issues of the time that this book is set in, but this is not a book that I would like broadly recommend. This category I'm calling, well, anyways, because these are the books that I think are just kind of a skip all the way around, books that kind of didn't work for me in any way, and books that I don't know are for any one particular audience. First up, we have The Love Haters by Catherine Center. I don't know where Catherine and I went wrong many years ago, but I have not had luck with this author's books since The Bodyguard, which I think was her like 2020 or 2021 release. Everything since then has been a total fail for me, and unfortunately The Love Haters is no exception. This book is about Katie and Hutch. Katie is a director slash filmmaker who's working for a small company and also has her own YouTube channel. Definitely has a vision for what she wants to be doing, and she gets kind of this opportunity where she is supposed to go and interview Hutch, who is a Coast Guard who ended up saving people a while ago and got really famous for this, but he is kind of laying low and doesn't take any interviews, doesn't want any attention. However, the Coast Guard is asking him to participate in this commercial to kind of publicize, I guess, the Coast Guard and the amazing things that they do. Hutch cannot turn this down, so Katie ends up going there and interviewing him, and the in that Katie kind of has with Hutch is that Cole, this guy that she works with, is Hutch's brother. Now, romance, very boring and very lackluster, yes, but that's not my problem with this book. My main issue is that Katie, heroine, has an eating disorder that is undisclosed to us as readers in any sort of content or trigger warning. I am someone who does not have a history with eating disorders. Can't imagine how triggering it would be to pick this book up. I personally was triggered, and again, I don't have a history of eating disorders. It was incredibly hard to read all of the ways that Katie hates herself and hates her body, all of the things that she's tried to do to keep her body as small as possible. Though she is technically healing from this eating disorder, it is very front and center in this book. She talks often about body image, and I don't think that she ever gets to a healthy place with it, except for by being validated by a man. I was really turned off by this book. I did not like it, and I can't in good conscience recommend it. Another book that I don't recommend for much tamer reasons is The Charmer by, I believe the author's name is like Ava Rani or something like that. This book's about Penelope and Xander. Penelope is trying to gain access to her trust fund. She needs to be married to do this. She marries Xander, this billionaire, so that she can get access to her trust fund. This was just so uninteresting. It reminded me of the Anna Huang billionaire series that she's writing right now, but even less interesting and with even more sex. These two really like each other, I would say, pretty much from day one. I guess you could say they have a little animosity, but after that is gone, these two are fucking like rabbits. It's surprising to me that they don't get like automatically pregnant with the amount that they're fucking. I didn't find it interesting. I didn't find it fun. I think there's much better romances on this list. Next up, we have Sunny Side Up. This is a book that I DNF'd very early on. I don't believe this author is an author by trade. I don't think that she like typically writes. I think she's an influencer who decided to write a novel. This book's about our main character Sunny, who is recently divorced and trying to kind of like find her way in her 30s after divorce. Theoretically, I like that. Theoretically, I love the fact that our heroine is plus size and we get to see that representation. I mean, I love that in books. Just didn't like the writing style. This reminded me too much of a memoir. Everything was very much told to us. We were not letting information get unveiled to us slowly over time. It was just really hard to get excited about this story. It didn't feel like anything particularly fresh and exciting. Disappointing because I love the cover. I love the idea behind this book, but the writing was just like not it for me. It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. This is one of the books that I have read most recently, and I wish that I hadn't. I've not had luck with this author before, and I keep holding out hope that, like Carly Fortune, one day I will like her brand of frothy summer romance. Unfortunately, that just has not been the case, and it's especially not the case with this book. This book's about our main character Jane, who in her childhood was a bit of a child star. She was one of 4 children who were part of this show where they were like up and coming rock stars, I guess, like part of a band, and Jane's character, Janie, what of all of the jokes, she was kind of the comedic relief. After the show got canceled or ended after 4 seasons, she just kind of went on living her life. None of the people that were in the show, I think, have really done a whole lot with it. Jane is now trying to get a film made. She works at a company. I don't actually know what her role is. She parses through scripts and tries to find up-and-comers for this, production company, and she finds one that she's really excited about, and she pitches it to the studio, and they're like, we're sorry, like, there's not enough buzz behind this work. We don't know how we can make this marketable. She says, hey, I actually have a connection to this guy who's like a really big pop star. I used to know him when I was a kid. I'll get him to write a song for this movie. She doesn't actually keep in contact with that guy, and that guy is someone that she collaborated with a long time ago on a piece of music, and her goal in this book is to really get in contact with him again. And this guy is going to be performing at this small town music festival, and so Jane goes with a coworker who she hates named Dan to this small town that Dan is from, stay there, and hopefully like run into Jack. Now, the premise of this book I found was pretty weak to begin with, but I think the harder thing for me was the weakness of our main character, Jane. She was someone that was so hard to root for. She is in her 30s, I believe, and I'm not saying you're ever too old to have childhood trauma, but the way that Jane lets people push her around, the way that she has this pivotal moment at the end of the book where she is supposed to stand up for herself and doesn't, it's just so frustrating to read. I don't hate all characters that have like self-confidence issues. I think that to be self-conscious is to be human. I think it depends on how it is executed. I'm sorry, like, the heroine in this book is so fucking pitiful and really hard to read about or root for. I didn't like that she also had to like grovel at the end of this book. It didn't really make sense. I did not like any part of this. This was just not it for me. I think if you like Emily Henry books, like, you might like this, because it feels more women's fiction-y than romance at times, and I think the hero kind of leans a little Emily Henry, but for me, not a book that I can really recommend. And then last in this category of books to skip is Heart of the Sun by Mia Sheridan. I like Mia Sheridan's books. They're not all winners though, and this one I had to DNF pretty early on. It is pitched as childhood friends to lovers, second chance romance, pop star bodyguard romance, dystopian romance. Guess Tuck and Emily have known each other for a very long time. They lose contact. Emily becomes a pop star. Tuck goes to prison, and now Tuck is going to be the bodyguard for Emily. He like needs a job out of prison. When they're on a flight, the flight ends up going down after a solar flare, and they're trying to figure out how to survive. Oh, it could have been great. I don't know. I really was not buying anything in this book from what I read of it. I did not care about Tuck. I did not care about Emily. I don't really like a dystopian contemporary romance. It's just simply not for me. Maybe it's your cup of tea. Maybe it's something that you are personally gonna vibe with. Again, I don't really know who I would recommend this to. This next section I'm calling Different Strokes. Maybe you're one of those folks. These are 4 books that I think could be your new all-time favorite. I don't think they have any major technical issues, but they are kind of specific and I don't think appeal to a broad audience. So if you are one of these kinds of people, maybe one of these books will be for you. First up, we have Give Me a Shot by Gia Cadene. This is a kind of Renaissance fair sort of romance, a lot of emphasis on mental health. I think that if you really enjoy Chloe Lease books, you would really enjoy this one. This one follows our main character Mo, who is a highly sensitive person, and we get to learn a lot about what that means throughout the course of the story. He's a single dad. He is super into welding or iron work or being a blacksmith, not entirely sure, but he does this at a folk school in Michigan. People can learn how to do archery or learn how to do like the olden time medieval crafts and shit. Ends up meeting this woman named Jessica who has recently moved to the area. She is going to be a professor at a university. She also is really into archery and is looking for a place to do that. Is she going to do that? The folk school. Now the folk school, as the story progresses, is unfortunately going to lose funding, so they have to put on a Renaissance fair type production. Everybody who attends the school and is passionate about it is going to play a part, and Jessica and Mo get close over the course of that process. This book, again, I think really works if you like a mental health forward book. Jessica is also dealing with some trauma in her past. We get to learn about why that is, and we get to go on this journey with her of figuring out how to best help herself, in addition to how she can support Mo, who again is a highly sensitive person. That was something that I was not very familiar with going into this book. I didn't really know what being a highly sensitive person meant, but after this book, I definitely know what that means. Now, for me personally, did this book totally land? No. I felt like this book was surprisingly sex forward. I go so far as to call this book smutty, but characters really lean into connecting physically before they are fully connecting on an intellectual level, and that's just not something that I personally vibe with. I also find that it is a fine line to walk between a book having really great representation in terms of mental health and then being maybe too mental health forward. I have mental health issues. I like seeing those in books. I like relating to characters. I like that representation exists. I don't love when the romance takes a back seat to mental health. Next up is for those of you that are really into cozy romances, whether that is cozy romantasy or cozy contemporary romance, because Simple Twist of Fate by April Asher really falls into kind of a large bucket, I would say. It is still, I think, for a specific kind of reader. So this book follows our main character Harlow, aka Harry. Harry is going back to her hometown with her niece Grace, because Grace is a shifter. We don't know what kind of shifter Grace is. We do, however, know that she wields fire and is slightly destructive. So kind of a last-ditch effort to get Grace the help that she needs in figuring out her identity. Now that she's back in her hometown, Harry is having to face the fact that the guy that she left behind 13 years ago, Jackson, is still in town and is kind of holding a grudge. Now, Jackson and Harry had a relationship. They were really into each other, but one night where like the pairings or fated mates are announced, she finds out that she is not actually fated to be with her partner. This is devastating to her, and she ends up leaving town and not wanting to come back because of this. She finds it deeply embarrassing that she would like be with this man who she thought she was super in love with, and yet he is not actually the person she should be with. That all kind of sorts itself out over the course of the story, and she and Jackson kind of work together to help Grace because he is a shifter, and I want to say Harry is like a witch, so they kind of team up and they kind of do some sleuthing to help Grace. So it is a really cozy book. I think if you like a cozy romantasy, you would really enjoy this. Something about April Asher's writing just doesn't work for me. I've read other books from her. She really specializes in paranormal romance. There's a witch series specifically that I have read a couple of books from. I think her writing is perfectly serviceable. Like, I don't think it's bad. I just don't tend to connect with her romances on the level that I'd like to. All of her books tend to be like 2 or 3 star reads for me. Not bad, just not like out of this world amazing. If you like a cozy romantasy, if you like something that feels quaint small town and you've got this cast of like paranormal side characters, like I think you would really enjoy this book. Next we have 32 Days in May. This book is a weird one for me in the way that it is written. I think that is why this book is hard to sell to everybody. This book's about our main character Nadia, who has lupus and is not taking her diagnosis the best. She is a very boisterous, funny, vivacious person. This diagnosis has really changed her life. All of the activity and all of the late nights that she used to get are no longer possible to her. I really appreciated that, I will say. Up front, in the beginning of the story, you understand that this person is someone who is just not dealing what's going on in her life very well. I feel like anytime I see a character with chronic illness in a story, had the chronic illness for a while and they are managing it, and our heroine, I don't want to say she's not managing it, but she's struggling. I found that honestly pretty refreshing. She's on the Jersey Shore and she has friends and she is trying to build a life for herself that is different than what it looked like before. In doing so, she ends up getting connected with this guy named Marco, who is kind of like a has-been actor who is also trying to kind of figure out his own shit. They decide they're going to date for 30 days and after that kind of part ways, but over the course of these 30 days, they end up falling for each other. This book is very weird, but it is very fun. Nadia and her point of view are hilarious. This book made me laugh out loud so many different times. I loved seeing these two connect almost instantly in a way that did not feel like insta love or insta lust, but was just two people who just happened to meet and happened to connect. I feel like this is very organic. It's maybe one of the most organic meetings that I've ever seen in a book, and it feels like whenever you connect with someone in real life, that's how I felt about these two. Now, where I think that this book might not appeal to other people is the way that it is written. It is written in a 30-day time period. These two fall for each other rather quickly. I don't think this is going to be everyone's cup of tea humor-wise. I think there are a lot of things holding this back from being an all-time favorite for a lot of people, but for me, I think this was a very refreshing look into chronic illness, and I really believed in this romance, even though it took place over the course of 32 days. And then last in this category, we have Rules for Ruin by Mimi Matthews. This is the first book in the Crinoline Academy series. Now, this series follows women who have attended, you guessed it, the Crinoline Academy place, a school for, I believe, mostly orphaned girls to become something a little bit different, to become women who are conniving, scheming, lying spies, which I love. The headmistress of the school is someone who has been betrayed in her past and is trying to, I don't want to say make a name for herself in adulthood, but who is trying to fix the ills of society from within by training these women in the art of not only espionage but also like proper manners so they can, you know, come out into society and kind of fuck shit up. In this particular instance, our main character Effie is tasked with kind of fucking up this man's life. That man, his name is, I want to say like Compton. He ends up wronging the headmistress back when they were children, and she decides that she wants to basically get her revenge through Effie, and so Effie is going to dig up dirt on this guy by entering into society, kind of coming out into society, trying to like find a match, but really she's trying to like find secret information. This is kind of challenging though because there's this guy named Gabriel who is also trying to blackmail Compton. He has a business where he owns like a gaming hell, I want to say. He wants to get legitimacy for this business. He's kind of built his way out of the gutter and he wants to stay there. He needs some legitimacy, and how is he going to get that? He's going to blackmail Compton. So it's tough because they both want something out of this guy, but they also both want something out of each other sexually. It is quite nice, honestly. This is a historical romance. It has all all of the fun of a mystery, of a adventure story, of a kind of slow burn romance. It is honestly such a fun book, but I know that this won't appeal to everybody because not everybody loves a historical romance. There are an even smaller group of people who want to read something that is more than a romance, that is both romance and mystery and historical. So not for everybody, but definitely for me. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 3 stars, just a little bit more from the mystery at the end there, but it was still a very satisfying read, and I would definitely recommend this one. Easy Breezy Beautiful Summer Girl, I feel like is another self-explanatory category. This is for those books that I think are perfect for a warm summer day, for sunshine, for those of us looking for a rom-com that isn't too emotional. Not that there's anything wrong with emotion, but sometimes you just want to pick up a book and be assured that you are not going to cry and that you are in fact going to have a good time. So first up we have What Happens in Amsterdam by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This book's about our main character Danny, who is looking for a new lease on life. Basically, she gets dumped by her boyfriend who also works at the company that she works at. She kind of fucks up and gets her company involved, ends up getting fired, and is looking to kind of start fresh somewhere else. So she applies to jobs both in California, where she's from, and also abroad, and she ends up getting a job in Amsterdam, which is a place that she has always kind of wanted to live because of a foreign exchange student who lived with her growing up. She ended up falling in love with that boy and having kind of a whirlwind romance until he ends up leaving to go back home. She ends up running into that guy though in Amsterdam, truly running into him. She is on her bike and collides with his bike. She finds out that the job that she has in Amsterdam is maybe not as good as she wanted it to be. Ends up not necessarily being fired from that job, but the company, let's just say, no longer exists, and she's having to find a way to stay in Amsterdam because she doesn't know what she wants to do in the long term. The good news is that guy she runs into, her ex from high school, he is totally down to enter into a green card marriage with her, and he also offers her a place to live in the building that he is the landlord of. It's his like family home that he is renting out portions of. So this is kind of a second chance romance between Danny and I want to say his name is like, is it Wouter? It is a really fun story that is surprisingly steamy. I feel like Rachel Lynn Solomon really delivers with her sex scenes because they are really steeped in emotion. It's not something that is like wham bam thank you ma'am, and there's a pretty delightful mutual masturbation moment if that is something that you are into. I will say a problem that I have with most second chance romances is that I want more development in the present day rather than just flashbacks from the past is kind of the pitfall that I see of this book. I also think the third act conflict was a little weak here, but I still really enjoyed this book and I would recommend it if you're looking for a fun and a different summer romance. Next up we have One Golden Summer. This is just quintessential summer romance, and it's actually the first Carly Fortune book that I've ever enjoyed, so hats off to Carly, I guess, for making something that I actually like. This book is about Charlie and Alice. Charlie is the hero of this book, but was the other choice of the first book from this author, and Charlie sees the relationship that his brother and his new sister-in-law have, and he isn't necessarily looking to have that himself, but he is, of course, a little bit jealous of that. This book mostly follows our main character, Alice. Alice is going to the lake that her and her grandma used to visit growing up, aid in her grandma's recovery from surgery. Her grandma just has not been the same since surgery, and Alice decides to take some time off from her photography work to take her grandmother to the lake. They can kind of like convalesce there and just like have a really nice summer together. There she meets Charlie, who is kind of caretaking for that particular property, and she just gets to know this guy who is really fun and kind of the life of the party, and she also gets to see kind of his hidden depths. Romance was so sweet and sleepy and quiet in the best possible way. It was like quintessential summer. I don't know how else to describe it. I loved seeing these two tick off things off of Alice's like summer bucket list, and I really thought that both characters underwent equal amounts of growth throughout the story, and I actually kind of liked the third act conflict here, so this was a really nice one. Probably one of my more favorite books on this list. Step is salty spiced and a little bit nice. If you are someone who really enjoys Crazy Rich Asians, you like melodrama, I think you would really like this story. It's about our main character Ellie, who is semi-recently diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic. She was diagnosed, I want to say back in like high school. She didn't know from like a very young age, and she's still trying to kind of figure out how to best manage her diabetes. This is something that kind of comes up throughout the story. Ellie has been under the thumb of her very controlling parents for quite a while. They own a very successful food conglomerate, and they're trying to get Ellie to come and work for them, and they meddle in big ways to try to make this happen. But Ellie, after a recent viral moment, decides she is going to move across the country and open up her own diabetes-friendly bakery, her own like sugar-free bakery. Her family is not very supportive of this, and Ellie is having to kind of fight tooth and nail to stay where she is and to make things happen, and this is obviously further complicated because once she gets there, the property that she is renting is in disrepair and she needs help. Luckily, this guy that she had a crush on growing up happens to live very close to where Ellie is. His name is Alec, and that is her brother's best friend growing up. He enlists the help of Alec, who is a general contractor and owns his own company. He ends up helping her kind of get this place up and running so she can live out her dreams. Of course, There is going to be fake dating involved in this story, kind of mutually beneficial, but mostly is helpful for Alec, who is trying to get his company semi-bought. And that, of course, has these two kind of revisiting old feelings that they might have had for each other in the past. What makes this book very Crazy Rich Asians, I would say, is the family aspect of this story. I could not stand Ellie's mom, who is very meddlesome in this book, but I think if you like over-the-top drama and you like a book that feels dramatic, but also in a way low stakes, I think this would be one for you. I did really enjoy the relationship between Ellie and Alec, their chemistry, and I really liked the way that Alec was able to step up and help Ellie in ways that really mattered. He was so understanding and just such a sweet guy. So really enjoyed this book, and I would definitely recommend giving it a try. Lastly, we have Ride With Me, which is an F1 romance about characters named Stella and Thomas. Stella is the CEO of a chain of bakeries, and Thomas is an F1 driver. They end up meeting each other at a bachelorette party. It's like a joint party where they are friends, kind of falling for each other pretty quickly. Not in a I'm so deeply in love with you sort of way, but more a let's get married in Vegas kind of way. But these two end up getting married and having to figure out what exactly that is going to mean for their future. And over the course of the story, of course, they end up getting to know each other better and falling in love. This is, I would say, the most standard romance on this list. This does not reinvent the wheel. This does not do anything bold and out there. It does have a convincing romance. There are a lot of like my wife sort of moments. This is really fun to read. I felt the chemistry between the characters. It's a book that I really have no complaints about. This section I'm calling Science is Sexy Sometimes. 3 books on this list have something to do with science or time travel or time loops. First up, we have What If It's You? This book is fucking weird. I read this one in a vlog, and you can hear all my thoughts and feelings. I'll link that down in the description down below. This book is about our main character, Laurel. She is working at a kind of meta Google Facebook-y type company in like marketing or finance, but she has a friend named Drew who she met like on her first day of work many years ago, who is working in the more experimental department of this company. They are trying to work on a machine that will be kind of like alternate reality, I guess. In this book, you learn a lot about physics, you learn a lot about alternate realities and the idea of like the multiverse or some shit. This is a way for our heroine to explore essentially what her life would look like if she was no longer with her current partner and was instead with Drew. She is dating a guy named Ollie, and she ends up finding an engagement ring at the beginning of the book in his sock drawer, and this freaks her the fuck out because she has commitment issues, even though these people have been together for years. And she goes to work one day, she sees this whole like, machine that could potentially show her an alternate reality, and so she is trying to convince the machine to show her what her life would look like if she was not with Ollie and was instead with Drew. This ends up kind of working for her, and she's like toggling between 2 realities even without the help of that machine. So in one reality she is with Drew and her life looks completely different. She's a completely different person, and in her present reality she is with Ollie. And I liked the idea of this book. I actually really liked the science, which I didn't think that I would because I don't really like the concept of the multiverse. It freaks me the fuck out. Anyway, this book I think you would enjoy if you like the concept of the multiverse or you like the science behind all of this. I don't think you would like this if you're looking for a good romance, because let's just say our heroine I think kind of settles. I don't think there was very much resolution in terms of our heroine's maybe trauma and backstory. It's very much a reason she does not want to accept this man's proposal, and that is barely touched upon. We needed a little bit more from that to fully support eventually figuring out what she wants out of a romantic partner. Won't spoil who she ends up with. She does in fact end up with one of these men. Time Loops and Meet Cute by Jackie Lau. This book is about Noelle and Cam. Noelle ends up eating dumplings at a street market and ends up reliving the same day over and over and over again. The problem with this book is that I got almost 50% of the way into it and I could not tell you a single goddamn thing about this woman. She is, I guess, a workaholic, and everybody thinks that she needs to, yes, spend more time outside of the office and more time trying to find a romantic partner, but that is all we know about her. We don't know anything about her interests, about her family, about fucking anything, except for her trying to get out of this Groundhog Day situation. And she ends up meeting a friend who has also eaten a dumpling and is also in this like time loop situation, and they kind of team up to try to fix things. And she ends up like meeting a guy who also wants to show up multiple different times within her day that keeps repeating, and so she's like, oh, maybe I should like fuck this guy, maybe he's my one true love. It's just not romantic or sexy in any way. I don't know if I like time being played with romance. In fact, I kind of know for a fact that I don't. Thinking of that one Rebecca Searle book about literally any book I've ever read that has, time travel or multiverse or anything like that. Yeah, just not for me. Not super sexy. What is sexy is Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. Didn't know where to put this book, but it cha-cha'd really good into the science is sexy sometimes. A bit of this here video, because both of the main characters in this book have science-y-ish jobs. Our heroine is graduating from grad school and is trying to figure out if she wants to get a PhD or if she wants to go into industry. She is also, in fact, hopelessly in love with her older brother mother's best friend. This is another book that I've talked at length about in a vlog. I think it's the same vlog actually that I read What If It's You in, so I will link that again in the description down below. This is just incredibly hot. If you like a good sexy flashback, if you like a forbidden summer romance with a little bit of an age gap taboo, I think you would enjoy this book. If you dislike the miscommunication trope, or very specifically dislike talk of age gaps and age gap books, don't think this is going to be for you. There is so much talk about the age gap that is quite literally the only thing holding these two back from being with each other. It is a repeated conversation over and over and over again. If that sort of thing is something that might irritate you, I think you're probably not gonna fuck with this book. If you want to be horny, read this book. Did I make Hayden leave to film this last clip? Sure did. Can't have him in our sex den, can I? I am here to give you the final category, which is the other kind of romantasy. If before we were talking about try hard romantasy, now we are talking about books that didn't try so hard. One of which I've read and one of which, tragically, I did not have time to read for this video. It is right here, and we can talk about that one first because again, I'm not picking this one up, or I am, but not for this video. I'm gonna read this on Patreon at some point. It is called Behooved. Behooved? M. Stevenson. It's about fucking horses. Not fucking horses, but I mean like fucking horses. The heroine in this book marries a guy who gets turned into a horse, rides off into the sunset with him, and I don't think she fucks him in horse form, but fucking horses, you know? I'm very curious to find out more. I love the cover of this book. It's nuts. I love the pink sprayed edges. This looks wild, and I'm very excited to give this a go. Bianca knows her duty comes before her heart. When the threat of war looms, she agrees to marry the neighboring kingdom's heir, and the neighboring kingdom's heir does become a horse. Okay, let's talk about a book I did read, A Fate Forged in Fire. This was not good. I wish that it were, and I was really ready and willing to put this in the category of romantasy that is try hard, because there is that like Scottish folklore sort of vibe to this. There are a lot of Scottish names used. The narrator has a Scottish accent. It felt very House of the Dragon, if you will, as well, just because of the storyline itself. Essentially, our heroine is a part of a family who used to rule and used to have connection to the dragons. Our travels through the matriarchal line of this particular society, but for too long, men have been in charge, and now the dragons' powers, the multiple dragons that are in the society, their powers are kind of waning, and the king is going to die soon. What would be the best course of action but our heroine to take over the throne, to usurp whoever is going to become king next? Unfortunately, this proves challenging because there is some issues with who is bonding to what dragon, and she has not been in power, her family has not been in power for hundreds of years. They're kind of like, hey, we already have a line of succession that we've got planned out. We have this religion that is going to be based on something other than the power of women, and this religion is spreading through the land. It proves challenging basically for her to gain any power. She enters into a marriage of inconvenience with one of the heirs to the throne, and things get tricky and messy, and there are dragons, and there is fucking, and I just really wanted to enjoy this book, honestly. It just didn't happen. I pretty quickly realized after the 20% mark that our heroine was very similar to a Selena Sardothian or an Aelin Galathinius, if you will. She was trying to help her people, but it was not necessarily misguided. It was unfortunately just guided by other people. She was really stubborn. She also didn't listen, but also kind of didn't have opinions of her own. It sounds like all of that is counterintuitive or at odds. If you read the book, I think you will understand what I'm talking about. It was just an incredibly frustrating read, and I didn't really care to read more into the series. Ending, even though it was a cliffhanger, again, I'm just like, I can't bother to care. So yeah, I gave that book 2 stars, and I won't be carrying on with the series, though I will say the physical copy of this book, which I am a proud owner of, is shiny, which is, I guess, nice. So those are all 30 of the books that I read this month, and I guess over the past couple of months. I had a really fun time reading all of these and just getting to know what new releases are up and coming and getting to share my knowledge with all of you. I'm excited to do this again next month. I will leave you with some final parting recommendations, I guess, if you wanted to just skip ahead to this part. These are the 5 favorites that I had from this month. These are the 5 books that I gave 4 or 5 stars, and they are books generally that I will be thinking about for quite a while. First up, we have One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. I mean, hello. I really enjoyed this book. First Carly Fortune I've ever liked. It had to go on the list. Wind It Back by Liz Tomford. Maybe not the best book that I've ever read by this author, but still a very solid romance. Ecstasy of, let's be honest, a lot of mediocrity. Problematic summer romance. This is the only 5 star that I gave in this video, and I'm hoping that that changes in future months, but this fucked so hard. Allie Hazelwood, I love you so much. I can't believe they ran you off the internet queen. Come back. Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. Hello, it's Tara. She's amazing. Actually, you know what? No, I also gave Left of Forever 5 stars. I guess it's been so long since I've read that book that I didn't really conceptualize it as, you know, being a recent 5 star, but that's another 5 star. So 2 5 stars. Look at me go. Then 30 Days in June. That one, is it kooky? Is it weird? Yes, but sometimes that actually works. So that's it for me, my friends. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I, again, had an incredibly fun time doing this. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite new release is, especially especially if it was not featured in this video. Very curious to know. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this format or what kind of format you would like to see next time. I can do a typical list video, type out the notes, sit down in one place, talk to you about it kind of thing, but I kind of liked this. I like switching it up, keeping it casual, having fun. You're not gonna hurt my feelings if you didn't like this. Let me know in the comments down below. I love y'all so much. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.